You're ready to try. Okay.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Transition. But would be better. Yeah. 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 Exciting. It's just kind of. Chairs. More chairs.
Extra chairs are coming.
Chair. Thank you.
We got the extra chairs coming. Does she reach out to me?
That's right.
Miranda?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're good. But you can see on the screen, I think it's a hybrid.
I'm like, yeah.
It's based on ours. Value. Yeah. Yeah. We're making our round. Our president. I don't make it on the round.
Can we test that?
So
Mike?
I'm on the group chats for the sound is good. So
So this sounds good.
Yeah.
You want to do a test and see if the microphone helps or? Okay.
I'll double check so that I don't have to change the. Okay. Well, thanks. I don't know. Want to get started?
Is that helpful?
I think we should sit up. Yeah.
What?
I'll begin.
Test.
We don't have very much space.
Ross, did you get the files for Hillary's presentation? Or I sent. Sorry, you're fine. I got a little PDF/PowerPoint this morning.
okay.
Did you send it to Miranda by any chance?
Yeah, that might be better. Just so it doesn't mess with the time. She can just share her screen.
I'll forward it to you, Ross.
Yeah, actually let Miranda share her screen. She's under CWDB.
Take all the time you want.
Oh, Miranda, right, Ross? You get a text. Hot mic.
Yeah, hot mic.
We can turn that mic off if you'd like.
This.
Yeah, either way.
Okay, we're starting.
Okay.
Loves a hot mic. That man, hot mic.
Good morning, everyone. Before we formally open the meeting, I just want to make sure we have a quorum, so Tim Rainey will do roll call.
Are you ready? Honorable Kevin Mullen or Megan?
Megan, yeah, Megan's here for him. Thank you.
Great. Honorable Rudy Salas. Honorable Ana Caballero. Honorable Connie Leva. Cam you are there?
Yep, I'm here.
Mark Arabo. Bob Beitzer.
Here.
Jamil.
Yes.
Fantastic. Leanne Eager.
Here.
Mr. Bruce is here. Dean.
I'm here. Good morning.
Right on, Dean. Mike Gallo. Jason Hayter.
Present.
Hey, Jason. Chris Hill. Gary King. Hillary.
Present. Good morning, everyone.
Hey, Hillary. Steve Levy. Laura Long. James Mangia. Stephen Monteros. Mr. Redlow. Cole Rice.
Here. Good morning.
Hey, Nicole.
Hi.
Annette Smith. Bruce Densley. Joseph Williams. Gloria.
Here. Good morning.
Morning. Diane Factor. Rebecca Miller.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, what's up, Rebecca? Chuck Riojas.
Here.
Frizio.
Morning, brother.
Hey, what's up, Frizio?
Hey.
Jeremy Smith. I have one Jeremy. Carol Zabin. Leonard.
Here.
Hey. Reverend Trammell. Mr. Larry Frank. Aveen is here.
Lloyd Trammell. Lloyd
Larry?
Trammell is here.
Oh, hey, Reverend Trammell. Thank you. Secretary Galley or Jim Sunan.
Here, thanks.
Nancy Farias or Hobb.
Present. Nancy.
What's up, Director Farias?
What's up?
Chancellor Oakley or Sandra. Secretary Pellugia.
Hi, everyone. Here, present.
Outstanding. Honorable Tony Thurman or Pete. And Director Xavier.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to participate. As you can see, we're here in Southern California, Commerce, and so thank you so much for hosting us. I want to begin with just providing some notes on how we're going to conduct our meeting. This meeting is being conducted on the Zoom platform and we're here in person at the Net Zero Plus Electrical Training Institute in Commerce, California. So for those of you that aren't here in person, we're going to have a tour of the training center after we adjourn. And we're joined by Chris Cannon, who leads the LA Orange County Building Trades Council, as well as Annie McMonagle, Executive Director of the Apprenticeship Readiness Fund. Only board members and staff are on the Zoom meeting platform itself. The public can view this meeting via live stream on our YouTube page, California Workforce Development Board, as well as in person. A link to the page, meeting agenda, board packet information can all be found at CWDB.ca.gov under State Board Meetings and Archives, and a recording of this meeting stays on our YouTube page. Public comment is now open and accepted via email. And it can be at boardpubliccomment@cwdb.ca.gov, and I'm also happy to recognize that. Those comments. All emails will be read aloud during the public comment period noted on the agenda and will be included in the meeting minutes as part of the public record. We can allow for a maximum of 3 minutes per comment, so please be concise. Board members, please remain on mute, and I'm happy to recognize you which I'm hoping, since I don't have the screen, maybe our staff can assist with that. So please feel free to use the raise hand feature or type speak into the chat box. I think someone just tried to.
Yeah, Bob.
Okay, well, I will get to it.
I got you, Bob.
Okay. And then if you want to type the question directly into the chat, you can do that as well, and we will try to get to those. I want to note that anything that is typed in the Zoom chat box is included in the meeting minutes as part of the public record. So, Bob, did you want to speak, or were you just trying to be acknowledged for attendance? Stephen, we got you.
Thank you.
Bob?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late. You're getting a lot of feedback on your sound, and it's really hard to understand you. If there's something you can do about that.
Let's try killing the mic. They said that they can.
Can you guys hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. So, so we're gonna start with our action items, which is consideration of approving the May 18, 2022 meeting summary. You can find these minutes on page 4 of the agenda packet. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Okay.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman, Jamil.
Okay, one moment, Joe, we'll do that. I just want to make sure, is there any public comment that was submitted for this? No public comment?
No public comments.
Okay, perfect. So we have a motion from Jamil. We have a second.
Second, Bob.
Second, Bob. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Aye.
Is anybody abstaining or any nays for this vote? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Our next section is updates and discussion, labor agency update, and we're very fortunate to have our great Secretary of Labor, Natalie GI, joining us. The governor signed the 2022 budget bill and related legislation to implement $307.9 billion into the state fund. So I'm going to turn it over to Secretary GI.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure I was on to speak. I think there might be some confusion. I do have Abby Snee from my team, who I think was going to talk about a couple of issues, but it's great to see everyone. I did not prepare anything because I was not even originally going to attend the meeting, but I moved something else so that I can attend and see all of you. Great to see everyone. A lot of amazing things happening, working through this legislative session, which is ending hopefully today, because it's been quite an exhausting month, and really focusing hard on the implementation of all of this funding that was approved last year across several of our initiatives, including healthcare, workforce, high road generally, apprenticeship, innovation funding. So a lot of exciting investments, and now we have to implement. So we're all working really hard on that. But it's great to see everybody, and I will pass it on.
Thank you, Secretary Pujai. We wanted to still extend that courtesy to you, but we really appreciate all your leadership. I'll turn it over to Abby Snee.
Sure, sorry, Jamil, and just give me a minute to pull up a deck, and then I can go through a couple of things with you all. Yeah, and sorry for any crossed signals on our part.
And Abby is going to not only speak about the state budget as it relates to workforce, but also regarding a draft plan for workforce system change.
Sure. Okay, let me share a screen. Okay. Tell me all if you can see that.
You can see it.
Okay, and let's get into slideshow. Whoops. Okay, so so happy to follow Secretary Palucci. I think if she were talking, she could tell you more about the three primary focus areas of the labor agency, really protecting workers, providing benefits and income support during times of unstable employment, and workforce development, which is really our focus area together. And since really late June, doing some planning, have articulated a set of priorities that the labor agency, in partnership with CWDB and our other partner departments, will focus on, really building out sector strategies in healthcare and the care economy, addressing climate change, agriculture and farm workers, and infrastructure, as well as a focus on target populations, increasingly looking at farm workers and people experiencing homelessness among our target populations, and then workforce systems change. And everything we're doing is really driven by equity, job quality, an integrated strategy across departments, and working in partnership with other agencies and departments. In terms of sector strategies, and I won't go through every point here you can see, but really this historic budget investment in a healthcare workforce initiative in partnership with the Health and Human Service Agency that really addresses a broad range of healthcare occupations, from nursing, social work, really building out a whole new occupation for community health workers, investing in expanding the state board's high road training partnerships in healthcare, replicating very successful training. We've talked about this before, the Alameda County Emergency Medical Corps program, and certainly building our supply of social workers who are often gatekeepers for so many of these other roles. And then, as underlying all of this, is work that is really challenging to remove barriers to certification and hiring for people with histories of justice involvement. The care economy, as a cousin to that, really will look at career pathway strategies and training, and I think through some HRTPs to move long-term care workers into other roles, but also to develop policy strategies for improving wages and job quality, because we need those jobs and we need people in those jobs to be making living wages. Really, I think working in partnership with other state departments and agencies in the state's historic investments in both mitigating and adapting to climate change, we are really getting our arms around what a climate workforce strategy looks like. I hope to add some staffing at the agency level to focus on that. And then there's some specific budget items in the budget that support this, including $40 million going through EDD's Workforce Services branch as an oil and gas workers fund to provide transition support and retraining for workers losing their jobs in the oil and gas industry. Very pleased that CWDB got $20 million for oil cap for training for capping the existing oil wells. And then, unfortunately, we're going to have to remove this next line item, which did not make it through the extreme heat framework that was adopted by the legislature. But there is another $45 million for climate-related HRTPs within the state board. And then, of course, our going into planning phase with planning announcements about to come out. So each of the 13 regions will have a collaborative planning table to really work together in new ways to plan on both an economically resilient and equitable economy. And then in agriculture, working with our partners at agriculture, at Natural Resources Agency on different workforce and support strategies so that agricultural workers can build their basic skills, train for new roles in technology in agriculture, train for adjacent roles, and also build an ecosystem that strengthens worker protection and work supports, including childcare. You know, there's just a huge gap in childcare slots in the agricultural areas of the state, as well as transportation. And then we have, I think, untold potential. And Tim, jump in, because you've really been front and center to these meetings, to work in partnership with CalSTA, with Caltrans on the federal infrastructure dollars coming into the state, and be a kind of a partner on helping CalSTA and Caltrans build procurement standards for job quality and equity into their contracting, and having similar discussions on, I think, a less obvious part of the infrastructure package, which is looking at digital and broadband infrastructure, and will be part of the state's equity action planning in both digital equity and broadband equity. Target populations continue to focus on English language learners, young people just as involved. I had mentioned people experiencing homelessness, more broadly, communities of color and people with disabilities. And some of the strategies for expanding apprenticeship will move people in these target population categories into solid gold standard apprenticeship jobs through the new Apprenticeship Innovation Fund. I think probably we could have a whole presentation on some of these apprenticeship strategies. A new youth apprenticeship fund that was developed, the first step of which will be creating a youth apprenticeship committee. DAS is taking the lead in working with other partners in the state to really create apprenticeship pathways into state service jobs for people who are not incumbents. Have been having some very exciting conversations with the Teacher Credentialing Commission and some other consultation and funding partners to build out teacher apprenticeships as another route into teacher credentialing, particularly for people from Black and Brown communities. And in DIR will have 20 million to give out in just increase awareness of construction roles and increase the participation of women in construction. There's some funding that came through the budget to really enhance immigrant economic mobility through expanding integrated education and training, in partnership with the adult ed and community college system, workplace literacy for English language learners through ETP, and efforts underway to really update the work authorization policy for local areas so that lack of employment authorization is not a complete barrier to receiving services. And then we've started working with BCSH and to build and test workforce strategies for residents in Project Home Key, in other interim housing, both in terms of supporting some of the excellent work that is taking place in transitional employment through our network of employment social enterprises, as well as testing training for peer support specialists, community health workers, for people with lived experience. Other policy dimensions that we want to dig into here, including ways in which benefits cliffs can be disincentives for getting people into unsubsidized jobs. As I think everyone here knows, it's the we owe a 15% funding that gives us all flexibility. And our priority here is really to focus on improving employment outcomes and increasing wages for the equity target populations that we've talked about, and to link these programs and participants to the really great work going on through HRTP, Apprenticeship, and the ETP programs. And then just really quickly, looking at some changes that we can bite off this year. Reforming, transforming, improving the public workforce system is a really heavy lift. And I think often we have gotten kind of paralyzed by trying to do everything. So we are building an action plan for this year that will have a set of discrete goals and activities to reach those goals that really focus on enhancing equity, improving data and systems, and expanding training, each of which can help strengthen our system and reduce the barriers that keep people from getting services and getting jobs. Some of this, and actually this whole framework has emerged from the AJCC evaluation that Tim and team really just completed. And at some point, Tim, I think that would be great for the whole board to learn about, but through primarily the qualitative analysis there and the conversations with local boards, these three overarching priorities emerged as shared goals. And I think there's also a lot of excitement we have around some innovation planning with a cohort of boards who want to really try some new things. So more on that to come. And I think I'm going to end there. So happy to take any questions, but really want to respect everything else in the meeting. Bob, I see a hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Abby, just the specific concern of mine is around the dire shortage of healthcare workers, particularly in long-term care. Could you
Yes.
a little bit more specific about how we are trying to recruit more people into that field? Clearly, pay scale is an issue.
Yeah, the current the healthcare workforce initiative that was approved in this year's budget, as you saw me go through the line items, did not include targeted funding for long-term care. Although, of course, there's such a dire need of nurses, especially LVNs in long-term care. Those will be addressed there. But last year's budget, as I'm sure you know, had several $100 million that has not yet gone out. So, we've been working with partners at CHHS and HCI to help them move that funding and use some of that funding to leverage the HRTP dollars. So looking at training for CNAs in nursing homes, as well as working in partnership with CHHS and CDSS about training for in-home support services workers. Right.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, and the conundrum. We need more people in those jobs, and we need those jobs to be better to recruit and retain people and demonstrate that better jobs, better wages leads to better patient outcomes.
Yeah, and we need to be able to figure out how to pay for all of that.
Yep. Yeah, well, we are.
Yeah.
We just have to figure
I mean in terms of reimbursements, revenues.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Nicole. I was wondering if I could still ask a question. You were a little garbled there in what you were saying, so I'm not sure what instruction you were giving us. I can't hear you at all.
We're not hearing anything from the dais there.
Nicole, why don't you go ahead and ask your question? I'm not sure, Tim and Angelo, and are you guys hearing us?
Raise your hand.
Oh, no. Okay, there's no volume. All right, let's just move forward. Nicole, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get some clarification. So the first of all, I'd like to know if we can get a copy of the PowerPoint that you did. Abby, it was really well done.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Abby. Secondly, I wanted to know if the information presented in the PowerPoint was just reflective of the things that are funded and the direction we're getting from the legislature, or does it also include a mixture of the board and staff's recommendations and priorities? And I'll ask that before I ask my follow-up.
Yeah, you know, it's really hard to separate those, Nicole, because the funded programs really came from 8 or 9 months of working really closely, you know, with among all of us, you know, in the labor agency family, with the governor's office, with the Department of Finance, with CHHS, to really develop those priorities. So I think there was just really good alignment there.
Okay, so it's like integration of both. Okay. So my final question is, I really appreciate the industry sectors and how things are targeted to go forward. But I was also wondering if we were looking at some other sectors related to like technology, some of the, you know, like what is the note I put here? Like the innovative and emerging sectors. I know there's been some conversation around that in the legislature related to high-tech jobs and things of that nature. And I was just wondering where that discussion might be for some of those other industry sectors.
Yeah, that's just such a great question. And I think those are going to fall in 2 places and will, you know, from the actual room, we're still hearing that it sounds like bubbles underwater.
Yeah. That's a good description.
Sounds like we're in a washing machine or something.
And I think that your question really bears further examination, but you know, when I talk about climate, I mean, that whole arena is so vast and really includes emerging technologies around electric vehicles, you know, the expansion of production, trying to build a supply chain for electric vehicles here, all the emerging technology that is going to reduce climate impact. So I think that we're going to see emerging technology work there. Also, really didn't get into go into detail on the Apprenticeship Innovation Fund. That you know, $175 million fund is really focused on what we refer to as the non-traditional apprenticeships, you know, outside of our, you know, just, you know, bulwark construction and firefighting apprenticeships, and where there's been some really great innovation. And I think, you know, I know that the team at Division of Apprenticeship Standards is pursuing more is in technology roles, cybersecurity, some other technology roles with partners, you know, including Bitwise up and down the state, kind of I think very exciting burgeoning partnership with Robert Half, which is going to use an apprenticeship model for some of its contract work in technology. So I think that's where you'll see some of that innovation.
Okay, that's great. Yes, because I do agree that for our foundational and traditional industries, we definitely need to start getting opening those opportunities for all individuals. But I also think that there is opportunity, especially for our disadvantaged communities, for these emerging industries. And in order to maintain the equity, the equitable transition, make sure people don't get left out, we should also create some pathways for those industries as well.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I kind of sped through things, but working with, the Department of Technology on the state's digital equity plan, we've been kind of pushy to get a seat at the table so that we can make sure that equity around digital skills is really
I love
considered
that.
there as well, because those are the baseline skills,
Mhm.
and we really want to build on that. And, both in terms of those emerging technologies, but even in terms of equipping people for the way current roles are changing. As we've been
Right.
doing research on agriculture roles, I mean, we want farm workers to develop digital literacy, to be able to adapt to new technologies that are being used in agriculture. So to have a resilient workforce and to make sure that new opportunities that are developed, have equitable pathways into them, we want to build those digital skills.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that great question. We are not hearing the people.
Yeah, it appears that the audio box has gone bad. They're trying to troubleshoot it right now.
Abby, I had a question.
Yeah, I guess we'll just keep
Yeah, we
talking.
can't hear them.
Okay.
Abby, I had a question.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks. So two things. One is on the Innovation Fund. I just wanted to comment that we've been working with DAS quite closely on healthcare training in the
I know.
Innovation Fund, and it really opens up, a lot of opportunity for us, although it's still sort of hooked to an old system and old forms, but at least it allows us to be more innovative, and it's going to be exciting moving forward. My question is,
Oh, I'm sorry, just to interrupt, and just exactly what that looks like rolling out is still to be determined, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry
So-
about it. Yeah.
It's okay. My question is, I'm really excited, and we've been talking about for a long time about how to capture the framework around equity, quality, and catch the data. And you talked about, again, working on that framework. But as we work with ETP and DAS and HRTP and HCAI, all those organizations that we get grants from have different
I know.
forms for data.
Yep.
So is there a plan to have like one, because how are we going to catch the data if we're all reporting differently for each of those grants?
Yes.
So is there a plan to try to standardize that form, particularly especially ETP, right? It is more like WIOA than anything else, So how do we?
I will say, yes, and yes. Top of the list is figuring out a shared data platform among, CWDB, ETP, DAS, and Workforce Services Branch, so that we have common data elements, which, to ease reporting and to make disaggregation of data analysis for equity purposes much more consistent, right? We did some pretty primitive work, just kind of looking at different outcomes, by gender. And, we just need a bunch more consistent data definitions and tools. So that's a high priority this year. And we have been really excited to, in fulfilling one of Secretary Paluccia's ambitious visionary goals, is creating an Office of Equity and Evaluation at the labor agency level. So Jennifer Sturdy recently joined the labor agency team as the deputy for evaluation. And
I just wanted to jump in because I think this is such a relevant and important topic. So absolutely agree with you. We have a real challenge with our data. One, because it's burdensome. Two, because it doesn't all, our different grant programs and other workforce programs don't collect the same data. And three, because in many cases we're measuring the wrong thing. So I just want to, kind of state here to the group, we are working very hard on figuring out what it means. How do we define equity? What do we mean by it? Because it can mean very different things to very different groups. For us, and the way we've been thinking about equity, it's about access to our programs. How are we getting the people that we want to serve into our programs? Because in many cases, we're not. And the data reflects that. But secondly, what does it take for those individuals? True equity, in our view, and I think many of you would agree, it requires more than just a training program. It requires support services. It requires, everything that allows a person to succeed in a training program, in a workforce program, and then to succeed when they get a job. And so that is something we really don't collect, the information about support services and how that makes a difference in a participant's experience and in their outcomes is not something that we are currently collecting, but we need to collect. So are you guys indicating something to us? Sorry, Tim and Angelo, or no? Just say no or yes, because I see you guys flagging, but I don't know. Okay. We'll just keep talking until you guys tell us to stop. So there is a lot wrapped around this issue of the data. And so our new Deputy Secretary for Evaluation and Research is working with us on this question. And let me tell you, it is a massive amount of work to disaggregate what data is actually collected and why. Why do we collect the data we collect? What can we change? So we're really focused on this issue because it's at the heart.
Cut that sound so we don't have to.
Yeah, Tim, we can hear you now.
Great.
Awesome. So anyway, I just wanted to reinforce, we're really, really focused on this issue. It is like, it's at the heart of actually being able to figure out whether our hypotheses around what's going to make the difference for participants in our program and what's going to make the difference in actually breaking down inequity, if we're doing it. Because it's one thing to talk the talk, it's another to walk the walk, and then it's another to actually show that it made any difference in the world. And so we're trying to bring all those things together, and the data is a really key component to that. So thanks for raising that. And that's all I'll say. I think Tim probably wants to talk now. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob, did you have something else?
I just wanted to respond quickly with 2 points. One is you talked about measuring recruitment and folks that get into programs. We definitely want to measure, in addition to that, folks that complete programs and how they completed it.
And their
the
outcomes.
second point is,
and their outcomes, because let me
Right.
tell you, if I cannot tell you how many dollars have been spent in the workforce system where there's some level of recruitment to reach really hard to serve populations. Right. There's some level of getting them to achieve the outcome, the output, which is you finished a training program and there's no employment at the end. And 2 years later, those individuals are back in the system. And
Right.
what we've done, because we're not creating that proper loop and we're not connecting all these dots and really continuing the life cycle of a participant beyond where we exit them from a program. We have to continue with those people. I'm really passionate about this. I feel very strongly that we end up perpetuating poverty and cycles of poverty when we just kind of limit our engagement with participants to entry and maybe completing the output of training or some sort of service. That there is like this longer life cycle that we are, that we really should be aiming for. And that's part of like the service delivery model. And then on the back end, Bob, like you said, is the data collection, right? To tie all those pieces together.
right. And the second point, and then I'll stop.
No, this is great.
The second point is, it's really hard, particularly in healthcare, which is my expertise, to do programs without doing braided funding. So you can't just use one program for healthcare training. And then if you're completing these forms that ask for different data from each of those, but you're doing one training program, it doesn't give you the data that you're looking for. So I just want to really
that's a great point.
Reinforce that point that it has to be a standardized program.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's something that I keep pushing with we have 4 sort of workforce development teams here. The board is one, we have ETP, we have workforce services branch, and we have apprenticeship standards, which is now sort of evolving into an apprenticeship creator, right? Not just the standards approver. What I keep saying with these teams, and everyone's in agreement, and now we just actually have to kind of move, is our programs, our investments have to allow the people who execute the work on the ground to cover support services. They shouldn't be trying always to find it through other sources. I think that's what you're getting at with this braided funding. Like you get money for training on one end, and then you get money for support services on another, and their reporting is all separate. And then we have to embed this important concept and hypothesis that we will test, which is If we care about equity, our dollars have to provide support services in addition to the traditional training and other workforce services. There's got to be support services en masse included in our investments. If we don't do it, we're just, again, like Bob, what you said on the braiding is just right on. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Palucci. You guys can hear us now, okay, right?
Yes.
Okay. Our sincere apologies for the disruptions, but it looks like we've figured out an alternative means. So, Laura, did you get your question answered earlier, Laura Long?
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. No, I didn't. I was actually going to put it in the comment. Just wanted to reemphasize, and great to see you all. And Abby, that was a really great presentation. I ditto everything that Bob just said. Great to see you too, Bob. But I just wanted to emphasize the need to really innovate in the healthcare training programs. And I know you've touched on that as well. We absolutely need more diversity, nursing, mental health, and these amount of hours, especially for social workers that go through their clinical program with how many hours and then have to complete another 2,500 hours for licensing is absolutely an incredible barrier for many of our diverse workforce who are saying, I can't afford to not be paid a livable wage while I train. So those are really important for Kaiser Permanente, I'm sure for all healthcare organizations, and just really want to emphasize that to this group that willing to innovate, brainstorm, whatever. I know that this is not new news, but just want to emphasize this for everybody.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Laura. And so nice to see you again, by the way. But yeah, some of your partners at Kaiser have been incredible resources as we've been researching the nursing workforce and the blockages in the nursing training pipeline, particularly the lack of nursing faculty, lack of adequate clinical sites, what seems to be a growing gap between the nursing, students coming out of the programs and what they really need to practice. So some of the transition to practice programs and in the social work side, I think our goal there, I know our goal is to really look at some alternative models to accelerate training, a 4+1, a 2+3 that would engage community colleges and apprenticeship. And you would be proud that one of the really exciting things about working on this initiative is that we were accepted into a learning cohort that the National Governors Association is putting on in healthcare workforce with about 4 other states. And there was a webinar last week, and it was Kaiser's mental health development apprenticeship program that was featured. So very, very proud to be a partner with Kaiser and to see Kaiser get that national exposure.
Awesome.
Just a great program. Yeah.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Laura. Nicole, your hand is still up. Did you have additional comment, or was that from before?
No, I did have an additional comment, if I may.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to, kind of piggyback on some of the points that Bob raised. I totally agree with him about looking at the outcomes and making sure that when we're defining equity, to include the outcomes of the programs for the participants who go through them. But I also wanted to add on to that, that when we're looking at equity, we should also be looking at the opportunity that's being created, because that's what this is really all about. Populations of individuals who haven't had access to, training or jobs or education or the like that could move them to a career instead of just a job. And so, in that opportunity, looking at the things that a job is supposed to support and create. I'm sorry, every time I get on a Zoom, someone calls me. And they call back as well. Sorry about that. But also specifically looking at, like the outcomes from career advancement and mobility. So to the Secretary's point, we have to follow our program participants all the way through to make sure that the jobs that they're getting in is creating that career mobility and that advancement that we want to see people participate in. And from that, then they start getting the real benefits that a job is supposed to provide, like the right wage and, retirement income and security and wealth to pass on to future generations, all of those things. So I think that when we're looking at equity, definitely access to the programs are important, but it's that complete life cycle that we were just talking about to make sure that those outcomes are being produced in the way that we envision them. So I just wanted to add those few thoughts to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said, Nicole. So does anybody else have any other comments or questions? We appreciate the notes from Bob, Leanne, feedback. John Brower.
I'd asked a question in the chat with respect to RICIA. Does reforming that, is the state looking at upgrading or improving on work share as part of RICIA going forward?
Yeah, that's certainly something we've been, oh, sorry, Natalie, were you
No,
gonna?
no, I mean, go ahead. Yeah, it's a great question because we're actually working on this right now with EDD, both with the Workforce Services branch and the UI branch. There were some reforms legislatively, I believe, with WorkShare. The real challenge that we're seeing is that we're not doing a great job in doing like very focused outreach to industries, especially where we're seeing a lot of need, like where we're seeing layoffs and when we, so we're trying to update all of our materials because the processes have been updated, but the materials are really old and difficult to sort through. And EDD has this, Nancy's on the phone, but EDD has this fantastic user experience team that has owned this project, and they're working on sort of the materials that are sent to employers and community organizations about this program. And then the next step, John, is actually the strategy of how we start communicating to industry sectors about this program, right? And then how do we measure uptake? Because it's such a, I think it's an incredible tool to have, especially during recessions and hard times. But if like our uptake is just sort of stagnant, that's, to me, it means people don't know about the program.
Yeah, I would ask that we at the Federation have a conversation with folks on that. We did bring at the beginning of the pandemic some employers through our unions to EDD, and at that point you didn't even have electronic forms. So I know you've gone a long way on fixing that, but I think making it both changing the forms, but also I think there's in terms of practices and putting it out there, I think we can also would like to play a role. I think
Absolutely.
it
And
moves
Nancy,
on avoiding that long-term unemployment.
yep, yeah, that's a point well taken. And Nancy, I mean, we can chat with your team as well. I know they do a lot of outreach to stakeholders as they develop the different iterations of these forms. So we'll be sure to include you, John.
Thank you much.
Don, call me.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you, Nancy, Secretary. Gloria Young.
Yes, thank you, Abby. I really appreciated your presentation, and thank you, Natalie, for your comments. One of the things that I think would be important for us is as you develop the action plans and goals for the programs that you described, some of them being with the public workforce, that we as a board have an opportunity to see what that is, because I think that the data and instruments are really critical for us to see as they're being initiated and not when it's complete.
Oh, totally. I appreciate that point so much. And something I just want to share with the group. My view generally is that probably the best way in the traditional workforce system, so when we're thinking about WIOA, everything that you all as a board look at, that the best way to innovate in the system is not going to be like a top-down, everybody has to do something new. My sort of initial thinking about this, and I'm not really that far along yet, but I would love to come back and talk to all of you, is to really push innovation through like an innovation cohort of boards that are ready to try something new and different in service delivery, in measurement, and, in which case, like, we really take a couple of years to try something different. So I have some ideas. I've been, kind of thinking through them, but nothing is formed. And so I'd love to come back and chat with y'all when we have a better idea of how this could roll out. Your feedback would be hugely appreciated. Because at the end of the day, I think that's how innovation begins. You take sort of the the early willing innovators who are ready to try something significantly different from what we've done in the past. We support those innovators in those changes, and then we measure like what difference did it make, and then eventually others will come along, right? Because we showed that, hey, we had better outcomes ultimately, and that we're not so tied down to the way things have been done in the past. And I understand that requires permission for a lot of our boards or local boards to do something different, but I'm here to grant that permission. So I want to see change, and we at least here, we want to work with those boards that are willing to try something new first. We don't want to do this top down. Everyone has to do something different right away. It's not going to work. It never works that way, right? So yeah, I look forward to discussing more with all of you and getting feedback on that.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Secretary, for that input. And just to piggyback off what Secretary Palugi said about those local boards and what could be developed innovatively, I was going to mention this later in the meeting, but we are going to be launching about 4 to 5 regional member-to-member. And when we say member, we're meaning board members at the state level with local, of our 45 local boards. Conversations this fall, and it's going to formally be launched at the California Workforce Association Meeting of the Minds and conference in Monterey coming up. So this topic, and to get a sense of who would be interested in these things, could be part of those conversations.
I think what Angelo is saying is that at the Meeting of the Minds, there is a lot of partnership with foundations such as Irvine and Jobs for the Future that are going to support some innovative practices. What I'm talking about comes after. I'm talking about bigger, but it is one step towards some of these changes. I think it's really exciting. I look forward to hearing more about that opportunity, Angela.
And Secretary Palugi, you can't see the other folks in the room because the camera is kind of narrowed into just the 3 of us here. But Aveen Sharma from on the board is in the room, sitting next to me on my right. Also, we have a few really great guests. Kelly Lobianco, did I say your name? Lobianco.
Hey, Kelly and Aveen. Good
Kelly's here. And also here is Ann McMonagle from the Apprenticeship Readiness Fund in LA Orange County, and Chris Hannon, head of the Building Trades Council for LA Orange County. They're also, it's scanning around and finding everyone. Fantastic. But I did want to say that Kelly's already volunteered for that group, Secretary Palugi. LA County is
okay.
It's a small local area in the state, but we think we should probably include them.
Yeah, that sounds good, guys. Yeah, well, more to come. And this is just sort of like ideation at this point, but now we have to like turn it into something concrete. Like I've said this before at places I've spoken at, and many of you have heard this kind of like a broken record. People don't come to our services because they want a light touch. That is not why they come to get service. They need help. And our job is to think about what actually qualifies as help that it changes their trajectory, not help that like gets them a job that then, they end up back in the system because that job was not sustaining or providing any progress. So thank you, Kelly, and thank you all who are interested in working on something like this.
Well said, Secretary Palugi. Before we proceed to the rest of the agenda, Jeff and Clemente, did we receive any public comments regarding this topic?
No public comments.
Yes, there was one YouTube comment from Rob Meyer. He says, please connect with ETP regarding the digital and vocational literacy skills. Thanks, Abby.
Okay, thank you for sharing that comment. Okay, we're now going to proceed to our initiative updates. We have several critical initiatives at the board, and we're going to do a quick round of brief updates. And I regrettably want to share that our incomparable staff colleague, Aida Cardenas, is no longer our road field general. We wish her the absolute best with her future. The amazing Sandra Hamame is stepping up in the interim as we search for a permanent field director. And so we're going to start our updates with Pradeep and the research, legislation, and policy team.
Yeah, and we'll keep it high level so that in brief, so that, but if folks have questions, we can stop after each one, right, Mr. Chair, and take your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim, I'll be brief in my remarks. I'll start off by saying that, as many of you know, Marissa Clark, who was a policy and legislative director, left early this summer, but we have replaced her with Ashley Englesey she was in the policy and legislative division branch, and so she is now going to be the manager for all things policy and legislation. So you will be hearing from her in upcoming meetings. Let me start with the research first. The three third-party evaluations have been complete. The AJCC, AB 1111, RPI 3.0. We are in the process of getting them accessible, getting approval from agency, and then placing them on the website. At the entry, the meeting of the Minds Conference next week, we will be having a presentation on the conclusions, implications, and lessons learned from these three completed evaluations. In addition to that, we have current evaluations that are underway, Prison to Employment and the Regional Partnership Initiative 4.0. We're starting to put in place the next round of evaluations, the Regional Equity, Regional Recovery Partnerships, HRTP, HRCC, Breaking Barriers. What has assisted in to speed up this process is we've developed an evaluation template that we use for all of these forthcoming evaluations and then customize them for the particular grant. In addition to these three evaluations that I just mentioned, we have completed the CalSkills reports, both the workforce metrics database dashboard report, as well as the impact study that was completed by the California Policy Lab. And I will put a little bit later in the chat the link to those reports. We're starting on phase 2 of CalSkills, and we will be and the research team is working on white papers that are centered around job quality, equity, and climate resiliency. With regard to the policy work, there's continuing work on WIOA, directives, waivers, MOUs. A couple of weeks ago, the U.S. Department of Labor had a governance visit to California, and we're awaiting the final report from them. We are getting ready to develop the 2021 WIO annual report for program year 2021, the annual report, which is supposed to be submitted at the end of October. As Abby mentioned, I think the Secretary mentioned, we are wrapping up all of the different things that we need to do for the 2022 legislative session. And then next time we meet, we will talk, as we did last year, give you a list of the bills that have become legislation and that impact the CWDB. With regard to data administration and management, we're almost complete to moving to the cloud infrastructure that is moving CalSkills into the 21st century. And by so doing, CWDB will have a system that with enhanced security, ease of transferring data from our partners, and expanded analytics on a more updated CalSkills data. We are conducting meetings with our data partners, working on data contracts, and we're expanding the data set for CalSkills. We're working to get data on our state-funded grants to be housed within CWDB Salesforce platform. With regard, they're moving on to state agency partnerships. CWDB submitted along with actually the agency submitted a 10 million grant proposal request to the U.S. Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Prisons, which seek to provide federally incarcerated and justice-involved individuals with job training skills, supportive services to improve their employment outcomes and reduce recidivism. In the climate area, in terms of partnerships, we've developed language. We are developing language in the climate area. We are providing feedback and recommendations, and we are developing a workshop centering on equity and environmental justice. We are continuing our regional coordination efforts, working both with the Chancellor's Office and the California Department of Education. With that, I will stop here as this is the end of my remarks, and I'll turn it over if there are any questions.
Thank you, Pradeep. We have a comment or question from Secretary Palucci.
Hi, thank you all. Pradeep, thank you so much for that update. Can I just clarify something and ask something? Did you say that for the next meeting, there would be sort of a presentation on or some discussion on the evaluations and their findings?
No, I said what we do, I was talking about the bills that will become legislation. That's what I was talking about. But
but before that, you talked about
I said that
skills.
at the meeting of the Minds Conference, we're presenting.
Oh.
Next week, we are presenting. We're having a joint presentation from the third-party evaluators on those three different evaluations.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be at that meeting. I am wondering if we can ask the evaluators. This is just important feedback for us as a board. Like, it's great to hear sort of what some of the findings are in layman's terms. With regard to our, the various programs and some of the observations that are made in those evaluations. I'm wondering if at those sessions, they might also ask the participants to brainstorm a little bit on what it means, the so what, and what might have to look different for outcomes to look different, or what are some of the key observations we're seeing and how it connects back to the workforce system and our actual program. So I'd like our evaluation sort of presentations at conferences and all that to bring information back to us about what folks, how they interpret that data and the information and the findings and what might be possible in the workforce system. What are we seeing as roadblocks, or what should be changed, or what is this indicating is a challenge? I think that is information that would be really great to bring back to the group. So that we can, actually think about the full loop of evaluation, right? You evaluate something so that it later impacts our investments and our actual service delivery. If not, that investment is not really worthwhile. So just something I'd like to throw out there. I don't know if anyone else would agree with that, but I think it would be valuable for this group.
Your staff agrees wholeheartedly. So we'll do that. In addition to that, we were just talking about bringing that back to our next board meeting and having a conversation among these folks at the next board meeting. Yeah. We could also do some presentation of the findings from the evaluation also. In addition to that, because we're, as the Chairman Farouk said, we're going to be fanning out across the state, talking to local board members with our state board members. We could also use this as an opportunity to have discussions about how the system is working, where the gaps are, and get feedback from board members in their regions. So again, another opportunity to kind of collect information, understand what's happening on the ground, get a better sense of it, and then bring that back to the state.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Secretary. Any other comments or questions for Pradeep? Okay, we'll now move on to program implementation team, Joelle Hurst. Okay, if Joelle isn't ready, we'll circle back with her. Sandra Hamame, are you ready for your High Road Field Team update?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I can provide an update. Hi, and thank you, Chair Farouk, and thanks for your acknowledgement earlier that our team is in a transition period. We very much miss Aida and all her contributions, and definitely want to thank her for everything that she built within our team. We are grateful for the foundation she established, which is really helping us keep all the great forward momentum going. And I also want to acknowledge the High Road Field Team for all their hard work these last few months. As our High Road portfolio continues to grow, you've heard us, I think, say this before, that the portfolio will likely double in the next few months, and we're building our capacity to support existing and new projects. In July, we welcomed a partnership alignment manager who will focus on increased coordination with community colleges. Earlier this month, we welcomed 2 new field specialists, and they're actually, I think, in attendance in person at the board meeting right now. Jesse Flores, who was most recently part of the CWDB Workforce Accelerator team, and Paul Aguirre, who was previously a labor market consultant with EDD based in the Inland Empire. We're really excited to be able to welcome new team members. And work continues. The field team continues to provide support to existing HRTPs and HRCC projects. What's been standing out lately is that the field specialists have really helped facilitate some key connections between projects in different regions, really providing a chance for projects to share High Road best practices with their peers, working with each other to really utilize that High Road community for problem solving, coalition building. It's accelerating the partnership infrastructure throughout the state. So it's been really great to see that and seeing those connections being made. And while we're still taking a hybrid approach to field work, some things are still in a virtual setting. Whenever it is possible, the field team is out meeting folks in person, attending participant graduations, open house events, project launches. And that's been great, being out and seeing people. That's been really helpful, and it's produced a lot of great conversations and outreach opportunities as well. We are continuing outreach with prospective projects. So with these funding opportunities, we're meeting with organizations, individuals, and sharing information about High Road, how to access the funding opportunities, specifically the Resilient Workforce Fund. Since the launch of that fund earlier this year, the team has held dozens, it actually feels like hundreds of conversations with potential projects to share the essential elements of High Road, advise on how to access, apply for funding, and additionally looking at how to integrate mentoring and coaching as new projects come on board. The field team is also continuing to work in coordination with the CWDB statewide partnerships team. That team's led by Sherry Mung. And that work includes the High Road Climate Action Partnership work, developing partnerships with state agencies working towards climate change mitigation. So we're working in close alignment there. And we've also been meeting with partners that have been part of our partner state agency partnership network, but we're also expanding how we interact and what we're talking about. For example, we're meeting with the Department of Rehabilitation, the Pathways to Success team, to coordinate and share High Road best practices as they prepare to launch their demonstration projects that are focusing on career pathways in key industries like advanced manufacturing, healthcare, IT. I think there are a few others as well. So we'll be talking to them, I think later this week, maybe even tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, I think it's actually tomorrow. And we recently contributed to the California Interagency Council on Homelessness's action plan. We meet with the staff at the ICH regularly to identify opportunities for increased systems alignment to better serve individuals experiencing homelessness. It really piggybacks off of some of that earlier conversation about the support systems and what it actually takes to support individuals who are transitioning from homelessness or experiencing poverty and actually helping them access quality jobs. So those connections are continuing in coordination with the statewide partnership team, including also some increased coordination with health and human services agencies in an effort to build out our work in the healthcare sector. We're aligning our efforts with the HRTP funding opportunities and building that collaborative network across state agencies to better support the projects and the people they serve. So really building in that intentionality with those conversations across agencies. And then additional funding news, the High Road Training Fund launched.
Trying to stay cool, man.
Hello? Oh, okay, no. The High Road Training Fund launched today. The fund was developed in partnership with Jobs for the Future, Labor Agency, Governor's Office of Social Innovation. And this fund is intended, it's private funding, intended to accelerate the impact of High Road. The first round of funding will focus on youth ages 16 to 24. So that's been very exciting. That's for existing projects. And then for HRCC, the partnership with the Lumina Foundation continues. That supports existing partnerships between the state, community colleges, Workforce Development Board, and the building and construction trades. The last item I'll mention is the UC Berkeley Labor Center concluded the first HRTP Learning Lab this week, or last week. The course was developed for staff and leadership of High Road partnerships to really deepen understanding of principles and strategies alongside other High Road practitioners. And so I just want to thank everyone that was involved with that, congratulate everyone that was involved with that inaugural course. And I think that concludes what I have for today. Dr. Farouk, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you for that great update, Sandra. I'll turn it to our secretary, Palugia, for comment or question.
Hi, Sandra. Sorry, I feel like everyone's going to think, man, she's on fire today. What are all these questions? But for me, it's important to ask questions so I understand better. Can you tell me a little more? I guess I have two questions. One about the fund, because I was a little confused by it, but the other one's about the training course. So did they develop a course or they actually administered a course?
Both.
Okay, so we're in that course.
So the Learning Lab has been an idea in the making for a couple of years, and it came to fruition on I think July 15th is when it launched. Okay. And it's intended for High Road practitioners, and it includes High Road practitioners providing. I think they were called practitioner advisors. So really looking at the theory of change, and I'm not going to articulate it as best as Pam Egan, who was instrumental in really pulling that together, but really, and others that have also contributed to that. But really, it's looking at taking concept and putting it into reality around High Road and having practitioners share information amongst one another to really build out that field of practice and create that infrastructure. So that infrastructure, that peer learning network.
That's great. Do we know how many people participated in that session or like estimated, and like where are they from?
I do. I have a list somewhere, and I don't want, I'm going to say it was roughly, I think there were some projects sent multiple folks to that Learning Lab this initial session. So I think it was about 15 people.
Okay.
If I have the number correct, but we can get that exact number.
Okay, and I think the other question I had was about the fund, the Jobs for the Future, the High Road Training Fund. So maybe, and with Tim and all, you can sort of clarify I guess I never really understood fully that the fund was there to fund high road partnerships. My understanding was that the complementarity of the fund was to help sort of with capacity building locally around how you organize high road, but maybe I'm confused. So it would just be great to get some clarity. Abby, maybe you have some information.
Sure. Happy to jump in. I've been working really closely with the governor's social innovation team and jobs for the future and some of the funders. And the High Road Training Fund is envisioned as a pooled fund so that foundations will contribute to a pooled fund that will be managed by Jobs for the Future to really fill in where there are gaps in funding in the public funding. Some of that could be some capacity building. Some of that could be bridge funding if there's gaps in one contract ending and another one beginning. Some of it could be support services. The first grant that Sandra was talking about is from the Hilton Foundation, which has a priority focus on youth. And so, so I think, working with some of the funder priorities also creates opportunities for, for example, to get more youth served into some of the HRTPs. Fantastic. So the whole idea is flexible funding with JFF as the intermediary.
Amazing. Thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you, everyone. Any other comments or questions for Sandra? Okay, we'll now circle back. I had said Joelle Hurst, but I should have said Joelle Ball.
Yeah, there you go.
Congratulations on your recent wedding, Joelle.
Thank you. I just have a quick high-level program update. So for our WIOA 22-23 funding for Accelerator and regional plan implementation, those will both be released next month on the Salesforce platform. We have $3 million in Accelerator funds. We're going to focus just on impact projects. So that's the project type that is replication and scaling of previously successful CWDB funded projects. We are requiring WIOA experience, administrative experience of these grantees. And we are going to focus on high road principles and connecting to high road training partnerships. And then the regional plan implementation is $2 million. These are regional applications, so it's one local board on behalf of their region. Again, focusing on supplementing their regional organizing and their staff training. There isn't a lot of funding there. And so we wanted it to complement the regional equity recovery program, so RERP. We wanted the WIOA funding this year to complement that RERP grant. So they're going to run, the grant terms are going to be concurrent on those. On our state funds, the 21-22 Breaking Barriers, that's a little over 24 million that was available. That closes Friday this week. So far, we have about 158 applications in progress on the Salesforce platform. And then the prison to employment, there was 30 million. All of those applications are currently under review. The RERP, as I mentioned earlier, those awards have been made and are going into contract. And then, and I apologize, I had to join late. I was in a Salesforce meeting. So I'm not sure how much Sandra covered on the HRTP Resilient Workforce Fund. But the first 4 projects plus the CNA dollars that we had, so around 35.5 million, those are all going into contract. Those contracts should be executed by the middle of September. And then the April group, those applications are under review. There's 22 projects. There's a July group that is going to be invited to apply early next month, so around the 6th of September. And then the next due date for grant proposals is October 1st. And then for HRCC, so the Construction Careers Resilient Workforce Fund, we have a July group of invitations that will also go out to apply in early September. And then our state funds, the 22-23 state funds, all of the HRTP budget items have been added to the Resilient Workforce Fund. So now that's incorporated there and available for applicants to apply for. We have a new reentry program. It's $50 million. We're currently getting ready to have our first limited group of stakeholder engagement with CBOs, and another staff person, Joe, on the policy team is heading that up with assistance from Travis. And so we're getting ready to launch that first stakeholder engagement and planning to release that on the Salesforce platform towards the end of the year, possibly early January, just depending on the schedules. We had a number of pass-throughs in our budget again this year, so we have just started to meet with those folks, and we developed a CWDB application on Salesforce. So it's for them to complete all of their budget forms and their work plan so that we can put those into a contract. So that's another item that's on the Salesforce platform. And then regarding Salesforce, I've mentioned it before, we have started working on our grant management modules. So we have fund management all the way from budget allocation through invoicing developed on the platform. And then we have contract and subgrant modification requests. That piece is developed, as is invoicing. And this week we're testing the quarter narrative reporting. So that's going to go into production next weekend. So that will be ready to go so we can collect those quarter narrative reports on Salesforce and then analyze them on Salesforce, and everything will be housed in the same place. And then in development, we have dashboards right now, and then we're going to launch into the data collection right after that. That is the high level, unless there's any questions.
I have a question. I don't know how much people know about the fund and how it works with higher ed training partnerships and higher ed construction careers. I think it's very unique to grant making, and we've evolved as an organization in terms of our grant making because the volume, fortunately for us, of funds that are going out for HRTP and HRCC, but our other grant programs. Can you say a little bit about how the fund works and the fact that people can apply for HRTP on an ongoing basis, and then we kind of roll those grant applications up? So it's really different than putting out separate solicitations all the time. So it facilitates it, makes it faster for us to get the funding out. It's far more efficient. And Salesforce is also another way to increase and improve the efficiency of our grant making. Can you say
Sure.
a couple things? Did I just say it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you did. So starting with our 21-22 state funds, we rolled out the High Road Training Partnership Resilient Workforce Fund, which is it's a rolling fund, so it's always open and receiving grant proposals. So the grant proposal is on the Salesforce platform. It can be accessed through our website. On the HRTP website, there's a portal for the Resilient Workforce Fund. So applicants can go in and submit a grant proposal. We are reviewing them on a quarterly basis for sanity. So that's why there's an April group, there's a July group, there will be an October 1st group, and then the next group would be January 1. So we review the grant proposals, and then from those grant proposals, we invite applicants to apply. And so then they actually complete the HRTP or HRCC application, depending on which fund they submitted their grant proposal to. And then we go to recommend them for an award. So part of that grant proposal process, and Sandra, you can jump into, part of that grant proposal process is to first see if there's any there. Identify, because we have multiple funding streams, and so we have funding that is specific for working with community colleges. That was in our 21-22 budget, and in the 22-23 budget for oil well capping and healthcare. There are what we're calling sub funds. So we talk about those on the webpage so that applicants can see what the various funding streams are and what applications were or what grant proposals we're looking for in certain industries. And so then we use that grant proposal to kind of triage, and we see like we when we invite them to apply, we invite them to apply for a certain dollar amount. And then on the back end, we decide which sub-fund or funding stream we would pull that award from. And so we're kind of building the plane while we're flying it, because we had to develop that application, the grant proposal in Salesforce, and we're working and evolving our process for review and then recommendations to the labor agency as to who we want to fund and from what funding stream. And then with our 22-23 funds that we got in the budget, those just get put into this rolling fund. And so they're immediately available, which is what Tim said, makes it faster than having to develop a whole nother solicitation, a whole nother application. Those funds are available through the Resilient Workforce Fund, either in HRTP or HRCC. That get to it, Tim?
Yeah, that was terrific.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Tim. Jeff or Clemente, do we have any public comments related to any of our initiative updates?
No public comments in the inbox.
No YouTube comments at this time.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. So our next section of the agenda is our local board update. This has been a standing item that we've had so we can stay on the pulse of local workforce boards and leadership. And today, especially because we're on site here in LA County, we're fortunate that we have the Executive Director of LA County Workforce Development Board, Kelly Lobianco, here to share her thoughts about economic recovery, quality jobs, and equity. So we're going to turn it over to Kelly now.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Angelo. All right, can folks hear me? Just shout out or write in the chat if you can't. But hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Lobianco. I'm the director of LA County's Department of Economic Opportunity. I'm really, really pleased to be here today to share a little bit about our new department here in LA County and a few exciting updates on our own high road strategy here in the county. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. So some of you may not have heard about us. I was really, really fortunate to have the secretary and the chair of the California Workforce Development Board at our department launch in July of 2022. We are an amalgam of a variety of departments and offices in LA County. We are, thanks to the Board of Supervisors, and a long time coming and a long time ideating on this, we've created a new department that aligns economic and workforce development. And so within this new Department of Economic Opportunity, we have teams from the former Department of Workforce Development, Aging and Community Services. So many of you on here may know WEDAX. That department oversaw our LA County Workforce Development Board, as well as our public workforce system, our American Job Centers of California, 19 of them. This team came under the fold of our new Department of Economic Opportunity. We also brought in a variety of teams and initiatives and projects that focused on economic development within the county. We didn't have a dedicated department focused on economic development. We had a CEO office, we had an office of small business and a small business commission. We had teams working on business improvement, business attraction, real estate and capital development. So we pulled all of these teams together under the roof of this new department. And so we're very, very excited to get going and stand up our team and our work. Just hearing the conversation this morning, so much of what we are doing is sort of in lockstep with the board and with the secretary and the dialogue here today. We're very, very focused on equity. We're focused on the high road, and we're excited about thinking about a holistic approach to serving businesses and workers in LA County and supporting that long-term retention, advancement, and mobility over time. And so I'm really excited to hear about the data work, the focus on equity, the increased investments in training, whether it's apprenticeships or high road models. That's all stuff that we're really excited to engage with you all on as well. So next slide, please. All right, so we wanted to highlight a couple of things we're doing around high road training partnerships. We're bought into the state model and really focused on equity, job quality, climate resiliency. And we're leveraging our American Rescue Plan funds. The county received about $2 billion in American Rescue Plan funds. Our department in the first tranche received about $120 million, and we're looking forward to more in tranche 2. A lot of this is focused on workforce development, some on economic development. So I won't get into it too much here, but it really runs the gamut of programming around shop local campaigns, street vending, an economic mobility initiative with entrepreneurship academies. But on the workforce side, we're excited to present to you the ways that we're using this funding to invest in the high road training partnership model. I know one of the board members talked about braided funding, and we're excited to leverage this funding to do more of the state model. So we're using about $12.6 million of American Rescue Plan funds to train about 700 individuals. And this model includes stipends for our training participants, as well as a variety of other cash aid supports. And it really brings together sort of our industry experts. We know that we want to invest in models that that represent an industry need. We want to train for jobs that exist, and good ones at that. We want to have really robust employer validated training models and curriculum. We want to integrate the support services that we talked about earlier today. So, not just those wraparounds and referrals, but real cash aid to folks that, allow them to weigh the opportunity cost of upskilling and really invest right now. And then focus on that job connection, that retention and advancement through a variety of models. We're focused on family sustaining wages, and other metrics of job quality. And that is important to everywhere we're investing with these dollars. So next slide, please. All right, so some of the areas that we're investing. We are looking at the high growth and opportunity sectors here in LA County. So not only those that already offer good jobs, high quality jobs, but sectors where we need to advocate and sort of improve overall, so that there are pathways to good quality jobs. I'm excited that we've got some of our partners here, Chris and Ann from the Apprenticeship Readiness Fund and the Building Trades. We're working closely with them right now to try to invest in a construction pathway. We have a long partnership together with some of our other programs in the past, our Hire LAX and others. But we're going to be investing $2 million in construction. So we're excited to train 175 folks, get them the MC3 curriculum, connect to a variety of pathways in the trades. We're going to be investing in healthcare. We saw when the state team presented on community health workers. We know that that's a major need, not just in sort of our private healthcare workforce in LA County, but we're also actively engaged with the leadership of the Board of Supervisors in filling the vacancies within our 3 health departments in LA County. And so figuring out how to make sure that we're testing models and facilitating diverse pipelines of qualified talent into the sector. And so we're investing $1.8 million in healthcare. We have already kicked off and are scaling up an initiative in film and digital media. We're focused on digital editing here. We Unfortunately, unlike Fresno, I saw them in the chat, we weren't awarded the Good Jobs Challenge. We were going for a big initiative in film and digital media, but our new department, we're excited to now house the LA County Film Office. And so we're really looking to do more in this space and capitalize on being the creative capital of the world and making sure that we're building a diverse pipeline of talent into that sector, and also thinking about the future of that work. What is, digital media, gaming, and animation. And so this particular partnership with Venice Arts expands upon an early pilot, and we're looking to do more in that area. We're also looking to invest in technology. We're going to be running a procurement both in healthcare and technology, actually, for an intermediary to help us with business engagement and sort of understanding the hiring and training pain points of the sector, both in the short term and for systems change, and then investing in training models. So we look forward to sharing some updates in the coming year. Next slide, please. And we're also investing in essential sectors. We know that we're not out of the woods yet, but 2+ years of a pandemic, we want to make sure that we are supporting folks in sectors that are essential for us to continue operating and having a healthy society, but also making sure that women and other caregivers are able to participate in the workforce. And we want to both invest in the quality of these sectors and the qualified workforce that supports them. And so we're investing in early care and education. I was, again, really excited to see the state investments in the budget. And we're going to be working with the LA County Office of Education and Child Care Resource Center to enhance some of our child care and early education training programs. And we're also expanding what was a second district pilot called Careers for Cause, where we're working with individuals with justice involvement and lived homelessness experience and training them with our community colleges to actually support homeless services and social services sectors. We're doing a lot of investments to combat the humanitarian crisis that we have in LA County around homelessness, and we want to create a more empathetic workforce. And so we're working with a number of CBOs and community colleges to create that with folks that have that lived experience and are going to be best supporting individuals as they navigate their permanent housing in LA County. So we're really excited about these sector investments and hope to braid that with some of what we're seeing coming down from the state. Next slide, please. We also wanted to highlight some of the creative things we're doing with this American Rescue Plan funding to ensure that those individuals that get into our training programs persist, complete, and then connect to those quality jobs. We talked a lot about the supportive services here, but we're using $1 million of our American Rescue Plan funds to offer on top of stipends that we're offering and on top of no-cost curriculum and other wraparound support services and referrals, we're investing in cash aid for folks that have some sort of emergency need, whether it's childcare or rent or something else. We know that sometimes I think the number that's thrown around a lot is like $400 is the crisis point for folks sometimes. And so we're going to be offering up to $1,500 in cash aid per person for 540 folks. And we're going to align this with some of those high road training partnerships across high growth and opportunity sectors that I just mentioned, as well as our other supports. And one thing I want to mention about all of our American Rescue Plan investments is that we're partnered with our Anti-Racism, Diversity, and Inclusion Office at our CEO's office, which means that every dollar of our American Rescue Plan funds is going to those communities that have been hardest impacted by COVID and are historically disinvested and marginalized. So, it's not just sort of our intention to get resources to those that need it most, but we're actually tracking and monitoring that everyone that receives those funds are those exact people that need it the most. And we are overlaying equity outcomes and impacts for all of our projects. And so we're really excited to take this model, take it back to the department, and then integrate it with all of our training models, because that's the name of the game. You see, our department is that of economic opportunity, and we want to make sure that our scarce resources are invested correctly. And we're really excited to be testing this model and also using an evaluation structure to hold ourselves to account on that mission, and look forward to sharing out about that. We do have all of our progress on these projects, as well as 88 plus others from across the county are going to be online on our CEO's website. So you can follow along and track the data with us. Next slide, please. These are just a couple of stories. We'll share the slides out later too, so you can see, but you know, folks are connecting, you know, in our film and digital media program, which is already launched, to amazing studios and, you know, small businesses and folks like Snapchat. Careers for a Cause, we have folks working at the Amity Foundation. You can see in this particular example, someone was hired as a job developer with one of our partners. You know, the impact is very real, and it's very heartening to see the, you know, the progress of individuals that have joined, and that's really certainly what keeps us going in the department. And then last slide, please. And last slide is just how to keep in touch. So check us out on our social media. But we're really excited to launch this new department, to sort of live up to the vision and a lot of the ideals that have been recognized today, and to get to work with all of you. So I'm relatively new to LA County. I've been here about 9 months. So I've heard some friendly faces. I saw some friendly faces on this call, and look forward to meeting each of you in person. And certainly if you're in LA, come visit us.
So that actually take the questions coming in.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Oh, am I muted?
Oh, yeah, Bob, why don't you go ahead? I see you have a question. They were muted. I think they were trying to say questions.
I have a quick question. Can I ask the question?
Sure.
Okay, that's a great presentation. And, you know, we've talked a lot about wraparound service and stipends. Just a quick question for you, if you can talk about this. We have a hard time in some of the workforce boards in paying stipends. Not so much that we don't want to pay it, but it's just kind of like the regulations and requirements around paying a stipend. Do you have any advice for how you might do it that could help us?
Yeah, well, we're facing the same thing as you typically, you know, that we have the same challenges with some of our federal funding streams, but we have flexibility with the American Rescue Plan funds. And where we can, we try to use work-based learning. So try to braid in transitional work experiences with our federal funds, and a lot of it has just been braiding. So we've been very fortunate that our Board of Supervisors and our CEO have been investing in you know, things like our homeless initiative, our alternatives to incarceration initiative, and unlocked a number of county general funds. And so we've been trying to align our work so that we can, you know, put WIOA in to do some of our skills training and supports, and then bring in other funding as well that might offer some of that flexibility.
So just a little more technical. So do you cut those checks directly from the workforce board? Okay.
So we actually cut those checks through our American Job Centers of California. So
Gotcha.
Or our other partners. Yeah. So we don't do it directly from the county, but through our partners.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Secretary?
Yeah, I just want to, first, Kelly, great presentation. Really appreciate hearing everything you guys are working on. Wanted to just say kudos to you guys for using the funding you got through ARPA to create high road pathways into those sectors. I find that that's sort of like what we're all thinking about. You know, we have a bucket of high road funding, but it's not enough, right? And so when I see counties or like local boards using their funding to do something similar, it's really meaningful. And I just want to say thanks for doing that. I had a question around the supported services issue. Do you guys, how do you measure supportive services? Do you quantify, like whether it's childcare or transportation or a stipend? Do you guys actually track supportive services through like a quantifiable dollar amount, like total amount that was provided to an individual through all of the, or are you not there yet? Or what do you guys, you know, what are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, well, I know at least for the American Rescue Plan, we are going to be tracking the dollars and types of supportive services for individuals. Give me a second. I'm turning to my colleague, Isidro, who's with me here. Isidro, come on up.
Yes, sorry.
I know-
Do you mind just repeating the question so I understand it?
How we're tracking some of our supportive services for individuals, outside of our American Rescue Plan funds, how are we tracking that?
Or how are you thinking about tracking them? If you don't like, is there a way that we could all like quantify support services as a dollar amount? Like, or what are your thoughts around that?
Sure.
Yes, that's kind of what, through regular WIOA, we track our supported services, through CalJobs. But with our American Rescue Plan Act, what we are going to do is document kind of what the need is around supported services, and then try to see how we can quantify, like you said, the support service. We want to track what it is that we're going to be funding or issuing the assistance for and how much.
Okay.
We understand that might pose maybe some sort of challenges for some individuals, but if it's like you say a utility bill, maybe it's vehicle repair, right? Maybe they should have some sort of kind of estimate or a bill that will maybe be asking for, just again to quantify the need and the type of need that they're asking for.
And one of the things I'll add, this is Isidro, everyone, too. He oversees a lot of our high road training partnerships and our business services within our workforce team. So, got to bring the expert in. Yeah, here, come on with it. One thing I would say is with this, we don't just want to quantify like what we gave and how much, although that's important and not always has been, and it hasn't always been disaggregated like that in the past. We're looking at the impact on training completion.
Yep.
On connection to work and the retention standards. And so as part of this, we're looking right now to bring in an evaluation partner on this particular pilot. We're hoping to add in some additional funds through our tranche 2 to get a big enough sample size, but we really do want to prove out that model that where someone has expressed an urgency of need and we're able to like plug that gap for them. How does that impact their ability to persist and achieve the outcomes we're looking for. I don't think we're going to be able to do a perfect like random assignment on this one, but we will be able to compare to others in these cohorts that haven't gotten that assistance.
No, that's incredible. Yeah, if just an offer, if you just want some brainstorming or advisory from our new DepStack for evaluation, she's incredible. And she just has a real great way of like helping navigate, like what exactly are we trying to answer and how do we get to that? I think it would be a good partnership just to learn from each other. And you guys are sort of like you're a bit ahead of the curve, I think, from a lot of other places. So we would be learning a lot from you guys as well, which is incredible.
We will definitely take you up on that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Nicole.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much. Thanks for the great presentation today. I just had a question. Those were very impressive placement rates, I believe that they were, for the different programs that you showed in your presentation. I was wondering what you think might be attributing to not being able to achieve like 100%, because in some of them you were really close to be able to get everyone placed. So I was just wondering if there was something unique that was limiting that, something maybe that we can learn from, and how are you planning on to addressing some of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some attrition, and we plan for that. I think we go in looking to connect, meet our enrollment goals, connect, complete 100% and connect 100% to the kinds of jobs we're looking for. But we do know people's lives get in the way. If we're really committed to, what we said at the beginning, which is enrolling those that need these programs the most. We know that folks have complex lives, they interact with complex systems, and we do what we can where folks do fall out to connect them to the resource that they need at the moment the most. But we set our ambitions high. We want to make sure that folks are not coming in and we're not training and praying, that we're really setting our sights on that 75-80% connection to job if they successfully complete the programs and show that they've built the skills they need to be competitive for those positions. Starting with the industry need at the front end,
and using that to build the curriculum and partnering with the right people means that they should be ready at the end if we offer the kinds of supports that we're trying to in this program. But certainly some fall out, and we try to engage them and bring them back in where we can, or get them to something that they need in the moment.
And then just to add to that, some of these programs were kind of expanding or building upon existing programs. And through those programs, we kind of ran them as pilots. So we learned a lot from those initial programs. So for example, for our Careers for Our Cause, we just offer stipends, and that's focused on it was focused on a very specific population, which is people experiencing homelessness. And after the training, the challenge we faced was a lot of these individuals weren't quite ready to enter the workforce even after training. Some of the training either triggered some of the trauma that they had experienced, or again, they just needed additional barriers to be removed. So with our ARPA funding, what we looked at is, okay, what are the challenges and how can we address those? So with our ARPA funding, again, not only looking at the stipends, but this worker equity fund to address some, additional cash assistance that might need, but then also looking at, we brought in an occupational therapist, a case manager, and a job dealer specifically to work with these cohorts, again, at the hopes of getting those higher placements. And so far it's working out. So we can hopefully continue that trend.
Yeah. Thank you guys for that, for those responses, but you're doing a great job. So kudos to what you all are doing in that area.
Sorry, and just to add to that, the last thing that I also have to say is just the partnerships. Right. So we have our partners here. Is just having those partnerships and really building the program with them, alongside with them, and doing a lot of pre-screening and pre-work prior to the cohort starting, to make sure we have the right individuals in the training programs.
Right. Great. Thank you both.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna pass it back.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you everyone for your comments and questions and feedback. We really appreciate these local insights. If we have a question from Joseph Williams, if someone from the agency can respond to that.
I'll respond to that. Joseph, it's a really good point and question. Those kinds of practices are generally shared through the California Workforce Association. Oh, sorry, Joseph's question is in the chat. Does a labor agency send guidance memos to local areas on the kinds of stuff that Kelly was talking about, these good practices? And I think those are shared generally through kind of the California Workforce Association's community of practice among the 45 workforce boards, also through the conferences, the spring conference that is mostly for practitioners, usually in Southern California, and then up in next week in Monterey, Meeting in the Minds Monterey. I think a lot of these great practices are shared. It's something we'll take back though, Joseph, if there are ways that we can push these down from the state also to local areas, these kinds of practices, we'll look into that. So appreciate the comment.
Thank you for that question. So we'll now proceed to the concluding other business portion of our agenda. Our next meeting of the full board is on November 16th at 10 a.m. Location is to be determined, but I'm assuming it's likely going to be in Sacramento.
Sacramento.
Yeah, it's in Sacramento.
Well, since we had such great turnout in person for this meeting in LA, we want to keep doing this hybrid approach.
And the
technical stuff always works so easily. So.
And as I mentioned earlier, at the Meeting of the Minds, separate from the normal convening aspect of what it entails, we're going to be doing very targeted member to member, state board to local board conversations, and it'll be launching a series 4 to 5 throughout the state. We'd love to get your thoughts and feedback on this tour concept. Again, it's not just to connect the board members, but other stakeholders on regional coordination, industry sector work, as well as high road. And we know that all of our board members, all of you have been very effective ambassadors for our vision and mission. And we know that many of you are involved in building accelerator and high road programs, so we appreciate that. I just want to put out the notice that we always need more reach and capacity in our field. So we want to enlist more of our board members in this type of leadership, thinking creatively and mobilizing industry-based partnerships and coalitions on high road principles. So feel free to continue to engage us on that. Now we have for general public comments. Clemente and Jeff, are there any final comments from the public?
No comments on.
Perfect.
Sorry, Clemente, no comments on YouTube.
So we're actually able to adjourn the meeting over an hour before our time frame. So thank you everyone again for your time. We adjourn the meeting at 11:58 a.m. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary.
Thanks, everyone. Great meeting.